Just a quick review of the book, The 6-Minute Torn Rotator Cuff Solution for Seniors. I don't know, for seniors, I mean, actually looking at the book, the exercises can be used for, I don't know if you're a teenager or an athlete or whatever, so I don't know why it was particularly for seniors, maybe to get that population, but certainly it's well suited for seniors, but I think just about anybody, literally, can do these exercises. Book starts off, so what exactly is a rotator cuff? I think it's an appropriate place. Has lots of pictures in it, so if you're a real visual learner, you'll really like this. Doesn't have a lot of medical jargon in it, so this is easy to understand. It's not really dry reading. Anyway, this explains what the rotator cuff is, what it does. Basically, your shoulder is a very shallow ball and socket joint, and it depends mainly on its muscles for stability. And of all the muscles, the rotator cuff is the big group of muscles, and there's 4 of them that really hold that ball into its socket. Okay, and then answers you need to know. I really like this question and answer section. If you tore your rotator cuff and you're going to have a lot of questions about things, this chapter will answer probably about all of them. What are the symptoms of a rotator cuff tear? Are there any arm maneuvers that might indicate I have a rotator cuff tear? What imaging tests are used to diagnose a tear? Where does it tear at? Those are other things. Here you're going to notice all the great pictures. Are there different kinds of rotator cuff tears? Here's a good one. I have a rotator cuff tear and I'm in a lot of pain. I need surgery, right? Well, not necessarily. So this is a very evidence-based book. It basically, everything it says to do or suggests is based on studies, and these boxes are studies that are in layman's terms, so they're really easy for you to understand the study. So to answer that question, you basically have to take the studies, look at studies where they take people that have a torn rotator cuff, and they measure the size of the tear, and then they run like a pain scale, like a visual analog scale. So they take, say, 100 people with torn rotator cuffs, they ask them how bad they're hurting, they measure the size of the tear, and then they see how does that correlate. Well, come to find out, there's actually a lot of people with big rotator cuff tears that actually have no pain. So these studies are showing that you can actually have an asymptomatic rotator cuff tear. Likewise, they also find people with small tears that are in excruciating pain. So here again, you can't really, base your pain level on your need for surgery. You might have an asymptomatic tear and something else is causing your pain, so you don't really need that rotator cuff repair. Things to think about. What happens if I just leave my rotator cuff tear alone? Well, good question. So here again, you have to look at studies where they take groups of people, like say 100 people with a torn rotator cuff, and you follow them for 5 or 10 years. And then you see how did they do if they had, no treatment at all. Does have a torn rotator cuff set me up for getting shoulder arthritis? Something you'd want to know. How does exercise compare to surgery when it comes to treating my torn rotator cuff? So here again, in medicine, the only way to answer that question, this is an evidence-based book, you have to look at the randomized controlled trials. That's studies where you say take 100 people with a torn rotator cuff and 50 you assign to surgery, the other 50 you randomly assign to a good exercise program, and then you follow them over time, like 6 months, 6 weeks. Some of these studies are like 5 or 10 years. And how do people do over time? Like say in 5 years, who did better, the people that did exercise or the people that actually had the rotator cuff repair? So actually the findings are consistent. This book has looked at all of those randomized controlled trials, synthesized the results. Basically, whether you have surgery or you do a good exercise program, you're going to end up at the same place. So good to know. Anyway, then they have an exercise program. It's basically based on a lot of the studies, the exercises used in the studies that showed good results. There's a beginning, intermediate, and advanced program. So even if you say you just have an acute tear, you can hardly move your arm, you start with the beginning one. If you can do a little more with it, use the intermediate or advanced. Or if you want to prevent a rotator cuff problem, you can just go straight to the advanced one. So here again, great resource. There are a few rotator cuff books out there, not that many. I think this is actually one of the better ones. So if you did tear your rotator cuff and you just have a lot of questions, and even if you want just an exercise program, I think this is a great resource. So check it out.